for the people who are a bit new to this. Let me zoom a little bit more. So if we basically look maybe at one of these valleys here. What is the topo line? A topo line, so the lines that they are drawn here on top of this shaded map. A topo line is basically a line of same altitude. So if you would walk along this on this terrain along this one of these lines, thicker lines indicate like 600 meters. I think the thicker lines are every 200 meters, and thin lines in between is probably an increase of 40 meters in altitude. So here we have 400, 440, 480, 520, 560, and finally we come to 600. So if you take any place, the topo lines are very useful, because if you take any place, say here somewhere this peak, and if you want to know the height of this peak, you can easily calculate it. And this is 800, 840, 880, 920, 960, so this will be around 1,000 meter altitude. So topo lines, I mean, are very important for trekking, because you can imagine, for example, if you look at this stretch here, so here you have a very dark patch. Dark patch actually means Google will also use a little bit of shading, in the sense that if the topo lines are like very close to one another, so here you can actually see that. So now we have zoomed in, so this line is now 1 kilometer. So I think if you look at the distance between the 600 meter line and the 400 meter line, you will see that this is probably around 200 meters, right? So here basically you have a horizontal distance, right? This is the horizontal distance here. So this horizontal distance is probably around 200 meters. And the vertical difference between these 2 points is between the 400 meter thick line, right? This one here, in the same 400 meter line, and the 600 line here. So here basically if you go forward 200 meters, you will be going 200 meters up, which is like a very kind of a steep incline, I mean, for trekkers to walk on. So here basically on these dark patches, you have like very steep rock, which will be, I mean, typically inaccessible. I mean, this whole wall that you see here is basically where the topo lines, every 40 meter increase in altitude is like very close by, so you get a very steep incline, very steep gradient on this side of the valley. So here you cannot really easily climb up. On the other hand, if you look at the other side, if you look at the distance between, say, here 400 meters and then all the way to 600, you can see this is like a much more gradual slope, right? So here you have more than 1 kilometer in terms of length, in terms of horizontal distance, where again you cover the same 200 meters difference in altitude, right? So if you say if you have to go 1 kilometer forward and you only go up 200 meters, that's 1 by 5, so that means you will have a grade, an incline of around 20%, 1/5, to be 1/5 of 90 degrees, probably around 15 degrees. I hope that is all clear to everyone, because that's kind of essential, right? So that basically means if you're here somewhere, I mean in the middle of this is basically a valley. If you have a little bit of imagination, then you can actually see that the water that falls everywhere here will basically be drained through this valley. Divi? So if you I'm not sure if, let me just maybe take something that might be a little bit easier to read. Let me take maybe one of the other valleys. Now let's say this one, for example. This is a nice valley. This is our Venkateswara 6th trail. There's a bit of delay. Okay. So this is actually a nice example. So if you look at the screen now, so let me also not move too much with the screen time. So if basically, you can see if you go a little bit to the right, here you can actually see that you're actually in the plains, right? So this is all flat because you don't see any topo lines, so there's no ups and downs. Here, for example, you can see a small hill because you get 1 topo line, 2 topo lines, so this might just be 80 meters high. Here you got 1, 2, 3 topo lines, so this might be just a small hill somewhere in the plains, which is 120 meter height. So if, of course, you approach towards the inner side of the hills, then you will see the more and more topo lines, and you will see hills of 600 meter height, But one key thing that I've been using, to identify good trails is basically look for valleys. So here you can see there is a valley. So why is there a valley now? I want to make sure that everyone understands that. This is actually a valley because if you start walking from the plains, right, you can actually enter the hills. You can actually go very, very deep inside, right, in the valley without crossing any topoline, correct? So even at this moment, when you're so deep inside Venkateswara, you're still out at an altitude of 360, right? 400 minus 40 is around 360, right? While when you enter the valley here, if you would have gone up, you would have immediately increased your altitude to 400 here, and then 500 somewhere, and then 600. So this basically, you can clearly see it's like a cut in the hills, basically like a valley which is naturally formed by raining water, which is drained from the hills, basically. All the water gets collected from these higher points, it will stream into the valley, and then basically by tens of thousands of years of water flow, this valley would have been cut deeper and deeper and deeper. So typically in our CPC treks, we will always follow some of these valleys. Why? Because, if you go, this is like South India, we got a tropical climate here, throughout the year it's fairly warm. Another thing is that we don't do like one-day treks, we mostly go for 2-day treks, sometimes 3 or 4-day treks. So typically like in a tropical environment where you have like sometimes direct sunlight, you typically need to have at least 3-4 liters of water per day, to start to feel okay and not to feel dehydrated and to keep walking. So when you walk then along these valleys, along where you typically have streams with clear running water, it's much more easy. You can always take drinking water from the stream, so you don't have to carry like say 10 liters of water with you in your backpack if you're on a 3-day trek, because that's just the water. You also have to carry food. You have to carry your sleeping bag, your sleeping mat. So typically, it's key to always kind of try to stick to some stream. One other benefit of like following a major stream on a trek is that along the stream typically it will be open, so you will not find too dense vegetation like thorny bushes or like very dense scrub. You will always have like a way along the stream to walk. This is another important thing. You don't want to get stuck because of lack of drinking water, because of dense vegetation, and you also don't want to get stuck because of like steep inclines. Obviously, you cannot walk up the wall here, so if you follow a stream typically will have a very low gradient. You can see that all the way to the source of the stream here. You will have a very, you will need very few topolines, so the increase in altitude is very less. Only towards the source of the stream here, where you're at the end of the valley, typically the topolines can be a little bit closer, so which means that you will have a steep gradient towards where you're climbing up on the mountain, basically. Is this, so far so clear, or do you have any questions on some of these basics?
How do you answer 40 meters?
No, it depends on the zoom level. The distance, the difference in altitudes between two of these lines depend on the map. So for example, here we have the second highest zoom